to move more expeditiously and efficiently to be able to plan and complete projects. Those partnerships are ways that we can be able to help prepare for the future. I think the work that is going on in terms of exploring how to streamline our contracting processes and procurement processes would greatly benefit folks in the field to be able to implement projects more quickly. Those are two key areas. But I know that my compatriots elsewhere in the field have an abundance of ideas, and through the technical assistance program, we can would like to surface those.
Well, my office and yours has worked well together over the last 2.5 years, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would provide that information to us so that we have a written document and we can go through and prioritize the ideas that you have. Ms. Calder, I'm going to turn to you. As you know, in Wyoming, we say that tourism is one of our 3 legacy industries alongside energy and agriculture. And the work your organization and the business community does definitely drives that point home. In your testimony, you mentioned steps your organization has taken to manage the guest journey end to end, and this includes modernization efforts. As part of a GOA reauthorization effort, we are considering reforms to make it stronger and build from lessons that we have learned over the last 5 years. I'm going to ask for your recommendations as well. What modernization efforts could federal partners pursue to pair with the modernization efforts the tourism and business sector are implementing?
Thank you, Representative Hagerman. It's a great question, and it's something that we've learned both through the Travel and Tourism Board and through our partnerships with federal agencies as well as local hospitality organizations. I think it's important to remember as we look to the future that the visitor doesn't know who owns what. They are looking at an all-encompassing experience, and I think one of the areas that tourism has struggled, and I would encourage, is investment in technology for planning ahead, for platforms, for reservations, and perhaps even managing capacities. This has become a standard in many areas of tourism. The guest is familiar with this type of management. Additionally, I think there are different things we can do to ensure that when the guest arrives, they have information, modern digital communications, as you saw on the boards there. At the Travel and Tourism Board, we not only encourage visitation and welcome visitors, but we want to make sure visitors understand what it's like to be here in our ecosystem, whether it's how far to stay from away from wildlife, whether it's to make sure to put out your campfire. That's another thing to learn that we could bring into the modern era. Additionally, some of the ambassador programs we've been able to fund through the Travel and Tourism Boards has been really supplemental in supporting the experience guests have, whether they're people at campsites or in dispersed areas in the national forests. We've been able to have boots on the ground for people to really communicate directly with visitors, and this is really important for how they act and the impressions they get when they visit. But I think the needs are great. The amount of funds we have has been really instrumental in mitigating visitor impacts as well, whether it's through public transportation, whether it's through finding creative solutions for parking, as you all saw this morning. That's definitely a challenge the Park Service and the businesses locally are facing. As we see increased demand for visitors to come to these magnificent places, we're going to have to think about how they're getting there and how we can best ensure they have a world-class experience when they arrive.
Thank you very much for that information. I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. I now recognize the gentlelady from New Mexico, Ms. Ledger Fernandez, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank to each of you for your testimony. It was all wonderful. I loved reading it in preparation for this. Ms. Brengel, you mentioned, and I said about how important it is for there to actually be people to carry out the work to make sure that everything that all of you described happens, right? Things don't appear, right? It takes people to run the park, to run the concessions, to take the tickets, to whatever we're charging to whomever, to actually, say, do you have a pass? Here, this is what it costs. Here's some safety information that is important. And as we pointed out, President Trump's actions to reduce the federal workforce, we now have the Park Service about 24% down on permanent staff since January. President Trump also suggested a $1 billion cut to the National Park Service. The support for the National Park Service is so evident because Congress, both on the House and the Senate side, rejected those cuts and actually directed that there be full staffing and that we make sure that we staff enough to meet our mission. Can we meet our mission with a 24%, 25%, or $1 billion cut?
No way. There's no way. And we actually did we looked at the budgets of all of the individual park units, and our analysis was that 350 park units would essentially have to shut down. And nobody wants that. Everyone here loves our national parks. And so a $1 billion cut is simply unreasonable. And when you think about the Park Service budget, it's 1/15 of 1% of the entire federal budget. So I don't think that was really a realistic recommendation that was made, but just to add to what you said about the Park Service staff, even this summer was tough on many parks. We saw visitor centers have reduced hours, search and rescue staff diminished, maintenance staff diminished, people coming off of trail maintenance to do custodial work. Even this summer was unsustainable. So part of what we're coming to talk to all of you about today is making sure that we sort of reverse some of these actions that have been taken and lift the hiring freeze. One of the things I hear from superintendents a lot in the last couple of months is vacancies. We need to fill these positions, especially leadership positions throughout the Park Service.
And I think it's really important that we increase the morale so that people aren't worried that they're going to lose their jobs, right? Because
So they want to work for the Park
they
Service.
want to work because it's such a great job. Like my son, I need to tell you, this is his dream job, what you have described. And I have taken them hiking across that lake. We got on a boat 10 years ago, went across that lake and hiked up to Moran and all those wonderful places. So it is inspiring. But we need to make sure we have that morale. I wanted to just quickly, Ms. Mattson, we need to remember that this isn't just, we have a maintenance that's really important, but we also have the Legacy Restoration Fund and the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which are key because we need to both conserve and make sure that we add those lands that are essential. Can you speak quickly about how the LWCF helped your coalition acquire the Kelly parcel and why that was important for the Grand Teton National Park?
Yes, thank you for that question. We actually used it twice for the acquisition of two parcels, the Antelope Flats parcel in 2016. So that was a $46 million purchase from the state of Wyoming for a piece of state land here in Grand Teton, $23 million from Land Waters Conservation Fund, and $23 million that we raised as an organization. And then late last calendar year, we purchased the Kelly parcel, or the Park Service purchased the Kelly parcel. It was appraised for $62.5 million. The federal government brought forward that amount from LWCF for that purchase, but the deal we made with the state of Wyoming was to pay $100 million. So we raised the $40 million to complete that purchase. So those were very key funds to add over 1,200 acres to Grand Teton.
Thank you. And Mr. Phillips, I'm going to run out of time, and the chairman is going to say you ran out of time. I really want to thank you for focusing on the fact that wildlife, this area, it's huge for small business. Can you just quickly say why that is so important, that these are small businesses that are thriving?
100%. Yeah, Representative. Thank you for that question. Undoubtedly, wildlife drives tourism. Along with these protected public lands, and I think that's something to be conscious about. As we move forward. Top migration, top scientists in this ecosystem, like they are scared. They are telling me, and conservation groups and the Park Service, that in the next 5 to 10 years, like the wildlife as we see it now, like will not exist unless drastic measures are taken. And these are from professors, doctorates that they study these, they commit their life to this. So I encourage, everyone here today and all your colleagues, to remember that. And if we don't have the wildlife resource, visitation will not be as it is. And there are studies to document that. Happy to bring those to your attention.
Thank you. I now yield, but before I do, Mr. Chairman, I'd like unanimous consent to enter into the record the New York Times article, Trump shrank staffing of national parks, see how many are struggling.
Without objection.
Thank you.
So ordered. Gentlelady's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Representative Doug LaMalfa, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and colleagues, and for everybody to gather here today. This is an amazing place to hold a committee hearing. Sure beats being back in D.C., and I'm sure the travel for you is a lot better too. So I'm excited that we want to take the bill in a direction that's going to promote efficiency on that. And as we've been struggling with in recent years, a $2 trillion annual deficit. There's in the federal budget. We've got to be looking at every measure. So that's why in this new administration, this new era, we've been looking at everything. And so difficult decisions, but it's also exciting that in the bill we passed recently, the whether you want to call it the Big Beautiful Bill or the Budget Reconciliation Act, as was mentioned earlier by my colleagues, $16 billion in new revenue from energy that can go directly towards this cause here. And so that'll make up for a lot of things. So what I'm always looking for, you can't always control how much income you get, but you can sure do things to try and control costs. And the cost of doing business for our parks or for any aspect of society, but in this case, parks today, when you want to do projects, where you want to get something done, it can often require a lengthy NEPA process. And we had a good ride up here with Superintendent Jenkins. Chip, thank you for some information you imparted with us. And I know he's really thinking about this because we're talking about roads and, you know, should you do a permanent superhighway or should you fix what you have and, you know, look what you can do in the future with longer term with that money. So if you're able to get those projects done a lot more efficiently, and I harken back to things we struggle with in our forest system as well. If you need to change a pipe under a road, a culvert, it requires a NEPA process. Now the road's already there, the pipe is already there. So as that applies to parks, Mr. Jenkins, tell us a little bit about what you have to face when we know that in the last version of the bill, 35% of the money, especially in fiscal year 2023, went to planning and compliance. 35% of what the money was put forward in GOA, 35% in planning. And so what do you think about that? What's that look like on the ground for you here, sir?
Representative LaMalfa, thank you for your question. I think we, as a superintendent, the National Park Service and the Department of Interior, I think we share your concerns and interested in working with the committee and Congress in terms of exploring options in order to be able to improve our efficiency and effectiveness for doing the planning and compliance functions. Having said that, it's also, I think, important to understand, as we've heard from testimony here, is that we're in the forever business, and we are here to be able to care for the natural and historic resources, and we want to make sure that we have highly efficient processes that allow us to make decisions quickly and to ensure that we both spend our funding wisely and also are making decisions that are protecting the resources that we are charged as stewards to be.
I want to drill down, though, more on the NEPA aspect and even Endangered Species Act, because if you watch the fireworks in our committee sometimes, where we have these discussions, just trying to move the ball a little bit to have better results, quicker results, and still achieve good environmental goals, we need to have reforms to NEPA and Endangered Species Act. We have some issues there that are causing us not to be able to do things that would normally be helpful in managing our forests and make them more fire preventative, you know. So, but also in this conversation about renewing the bill, we do need to have the dollars that we are getting have a little more equitable spread. As we talked about earlier, the DC Beltway project that absorbed a bunch of park money, that doesn't have, that's not correct. And then a project in my home state of San Francisco, in Mrs. Pelosi's old district. It received more money in that one project than 44 other states got in their entirety, around $200 million. And so we've got our job to do on this in here in improving how the bill is implemented. Ms. Mattson, NEPA requirements, what are you seeing on that on the philanthropic side? You're trying to use private funds to match. Are you seeing these overhead costs blowing up what you're trying to do as well?
Thank you for the question, sir. Really, the NEPA process is on the Park Service side of the project. So when we put a project together, such as the one we're going to tour later today, we work together to determine the project timeline based on construction, based on the weather in Jackson Hole with a short amount of time. So really, that's always on the side of the Park Service. So that is not something that is impacting.
No, but you see your dollars perhaps, do you? I'll ask you, do you see your dollars being bled off on very time-consuming and costly planning that should, especially when you're talking existing infrastructure, it's being improved or upgraded?
Yeah, thank you for the clarification. Really, those expenses are on the park side of the ledger. As I mentioned, when we do projects, we bring funding to the table, they bring funding to the table. Our funding is for the extra special. It's the stone walls, it's these so we're not seeing that impact.
Well, you don't directly. I need to yield back here, but the bottom line is there's less money going towards the projects. As hard as you work to raise the money, even if it's just federal money, your money doesn't get to go as far because of all the delay and extra cost that really doesn't make the project better or even more environmentally sound. So with that, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll yield back.
Gentlemen's time's expired. The chair now recognizes a gentlelady from Nevada who's gone through the woes of travel to get here. Ms. Lee, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Great to be here. Thank you all, and thanks to all the witnesses. As a lifelong outdoor lover and a representative of a state with the most public land south of Alaska, my vote for the Bipartisan GO Act was one of the most gratifying for me and my constituents. And the Explore Act runs a close second to that. And although I'm from Nevada, I consider Jackson my second home. And in fact, it has been my family's second home for over 25 years. Whether it's daily hikes or bikes in the Red Rock Canyon in Nevada, or countless days paddling rivers and lakes, hiking and biking and skiing these incredible mountains, I can tell you that this member of Congress remains committed to preserving our great American treasures. And I'd like to thank the incredible park rangers and the team here at Grand Teton for your incredible continued work and for hosting us this morning. And I'm very hopeful that our committee is inspired by today's events and will reauthorize and strengthen the Legacy Restoration Fund to get serious about tackling the interior's maintenance backlog and to ensure that our nation's public lands can be experienced and enjoyed by all for years to come. Superintendent Jenkins, as I noted on the outset, I have long enjoyed biking in the Grand Teton National Park. And last July, I sent a letter commending the piloting of an alternate bike route along the Moose Wilson Road, utilizing the existing levee access to the Rockefeller Preserve. I've traveled that road for years, as have many, and am very familiar with the safety challenges that this narrow and often busy road presents. In my letter, I encouraged the park to transition this pilot into a permanent seasonal option for cyclists, and I believe that solutions like this to improve active, eco-friendly transportation in the Moose Wilson corridor serve as a good example of thoughtful steps that can be taken to enhance the visitor experience while continuing to protect wildlife and park resources. Can you tell me how the project's coming along, and are we any closer to transitioning to a more permanent solution?
Representative Lee, thank you for the question. And you're right. Biking in Grand Teton is a great way to experience the park. My wife and I are out enjoying the bike paths multiple times a week, just like you are. The pilot bike program, which we have run for 2 years, we're evaluating the results of that to see about what we want to do in terms of going forward with that. We see that the GOA-funded Moose Wilson Road improvements have significantly improved bike access on the Moose Wilson Road, both enabling more people to use it as well as also making it safer. We're going to continue to be exploring how we can support existing biking as well as expanding biking in the park. I'll just also point out that our highest priority is actually to see about connecting a bike path to the Grovant campground along the Grovant Road. We are, which is the largest campground in the park. We are seeing a significant increase in families trying to ride from the campground along the Grovant Road, which carries high-speed traffic, and we really want to make that a safer experience for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Each year, millions of people visit these lands, 6.4 at Lake Mead in Nevada, 3.6 here. And currently, we have several RF projects in the works, water infrastructure like Culture Bay, wastewater improvements. These aren't the most exciting projects, but they're essential for visitors and staff. Ms. Brengel, I wanted to ask you, you and your colleagues have been closely monitoring the Department of Interior's implementation of these and other legacy fund projects. How well and how effectively has DOI been able to get these projects to completion? And what challenges do the reductions in workforce present for this work to continue?
These are great questions. Remember when the bill passed through Congress, we were deep in COVID. And so the Park Service had to deal with supply chain issues and to get the shovel-ready projects moving while having to start the compliance process for the new projects. And so right now, according to the Park Service and the DOI report that was issued a month ago, 30% of the projects are at completion or near completion, which is pretty amazing after 5 years. So compliments to the Interior Department and the Park Service for moving quickly and efficiently and still doing the compliance while getting these projects up and running. We're worried, especially with the Denver Service Center having reduced staff and will continue to have reduced staff, that we're not going to be able to fill the vacancies there in order to continue to move projects effectively and efficiently. So that's why we think a good complement to this legislation and extending the Great American Outdoors Act would be to lift the hiring freeze for the Park Service as well, so they can have the staff to move this along.
Absolutely. In your written testimony, the 2-page list of the actions that have really disrupted not only your staff, your current staff, but the ability to attract new staff is really quite incredible. Thank you.
Thanks.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Montana for 5 minutes. Mr. Downing, you're recognized.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for holding this hearing. Thank you to my colleagues for allowing me to wave onto your committee. And also thank you, Representative Hegeman, for opening your beautiful home state to us. This is an amazing setting for doing this. I was blessed. I was allowed to raise my kids just outside of Yellowstone Park and experiencing that wildlife identification and tracking, the hiking, the swimming, the camping, all of that stuff. And now they're all adults. It's a little bit different now, but I got to say, and I shouldn't do this plug, but I'm very excited about it. This spring, I'm going to be a first-time grandfather, and I'm looking forward to having the vicarious thrill of introducing another child to one of our national treasures. So really excited about that. Our national parks are more than beautiful landscapes, as I've told you my own experiences. But they're also engines for local economies, they're classrooms, they're havens for wildlife. And last year, Grand Teton welcomed over 3.6 million visitors. That's more than 3 times the population of my home state of Montana. And that generated nearly $1.3 billion in local spending and supported over 8,400 jobs. The Great American Outdoors Act has helped address deferred maintenance, but as we approach our nation's 250th birthday, Congress has a chance to reauthorize and reform GOA to modernize our parks, improve access, and create new recreation opportunities. And I'm going to start with Superintendent Jenkins. The Grand Teton National Park currently has a $343 million deferred maintenance backlog. If GOA funding were flexible enough to focus on modernization and visitor experience rather than just roads and wastewater systems, what projects would you prioritize?
In addition to the listing, you have the 3 areas that we would really focus on, as you've heard, is actually Coulter Bay. And we would see about doing a wholesale rejuvenation of Coulter Bay to restore that as one of the primary destinations in Grand Teton. As I just mentioned with Representative Lee, priority in terms of increasing bicycle vehicle safety out to Grovant Campground, our largest campground in the park. And then third is to meet the need of our visitation, which is there's a large percentage of people that love to drive through the park and take in the views and stop at pullouts. It would be a priority for us to see about rejuvenating and revitalizing places like Oxbow Bend, Willow Flats, the Snake River Overlook, to really have those places more welcoming for both private visitors as well as also the commercial tours that make use of those.
Outstanding. Thank you for that. I'm going to move on to Ms. Mattson. How has the foundation leveraged GOA funding to attract private support, and what strategies could be applied nationwide to maximize public-private partnerships while keeping parks affordable for all Americans?
Thank you for the question. The majority of the funding that we've leveraged for projects has been the Centennial Fund, Floria funding, et cetera. So the GOA funding has focused on the deferred maintenance projects that Superintendent Jenkins has mentioned to you. Those projects, those deferred maintenance projects, are really the ones that we're not going to participate in, generally speaking, and looking backward. A new sewer system is not one. I'm good at my job, but I'm not sure how effective I could be in raising funding for a failing sewer system. So
Right.
we've used other funding sources to leverage our private philanthropy up until this point.
Well, thank you. I'm going to move on to Ms. Calder. How do well-maintained and modernized parks impact local economies and tourism-dependent communities? And what would be the economic consequences if needed improvements were delayed?
Thank you, Representative. That's a great question. I think it would be a twofold result for the visitor. I think it would be not only there, without the infrastructure, it makes it very hard to attract visitors because the place starts to get the reputation that it's not a great experience when they arrive. And I think we continue to see increased demand for people who want to experience the national parks, whether it's people who live down the road or live in another continent. So I think without the continued investment in the parks, in the forests, in the resources that we have here, we're going to start to see people not have the experience. It won't be a world-class experience. And I just don't think that we're going to be efficiently moving people around the destination and being able to experience all it has to offer. We are all so blessed and lucky to be here, and we want to share that with people who visit. We do that in our messaging, and we want to make sure that we deliver on what we describe. We invite people to come and enjoy this as we welcome them here, and we want to ensure that when they arrive, they get the experience that they had hoped for when they dream. We often say in the Travel and Tourism Board that we're in the dreaming phase. We create a lot of content to make people dream about coming here. I personally came here on vacation one year and never left, actually. So I think that's where we need to deliver. We need to ensure that what we're saying to people in their dreaming phase is what they then experience in these outstanding public lands and through our local communities. It's all connected. It's one big ecosystem, and we have to continue to work together.
Well, thank you. And unfortunately, I've run out of time, but I want to thank all the witnesses for being here. And with that, Mr. Chair, I yield.
Gentleman yields back. Now recognize the gentlelady from American Samoa. I've had the opportunity to visit a national park in her congressional district. And Ms. Ridewagon, I recognize you for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Westerman. Talofa lava, Taiao Manuia. Thank you, Chairwoman Hageman, for hosting us in your beautiful district. And thank you to all of our witnesses, and a special thank you to Superintendent Jenkins and Grand Teton National Park for providing the venue for your hospitality. I had the privilege of serving on this committee when we passed the Great American Outdoors Act. The GOA made a new national commitment to the wonderful natural spaces that make up this country, attracting visitors to every state and territory. 5 years later, just in time for our nation's 250th birthday, we have an opportunity to reflect on the successes of the GOA and to evaluate how to improve on this law for reauthorization. And my questions are for anyone on the panel who wishes to answer. While the GOA made great headway into tackling the maintenance backlog of our national parks, it has become apparent that the scope was narrower than it could have been. Some of this has been covered in your testimonies, but how did our original focus on deferred maintenance miss the forest for the trees? That is to say, what impact has the focus on deferred maintenance had on routine maintenance or other improvement projects? And do you find that such projects received less attention or manpower focus in the pursuit of GOA funding for deferred maintenance? Superintendent.
I saw all the heads turn towards me. Representative, thank you for your question. All I can speak for is here at Grand Teton, and the answer for that is that we were very, very appreciative of GOA. It enabled us to do projects in a way that we would not otherwise have been able to have done. We would have, for example, the improvements on the Moose Wilson Road corridor, creating the granite entrance station, the equestrian trailhead, adding entrance lanes. All of those would have been parsed up into 6 or 8 projects that would have been done over 10 or 12 years. And so it would have been more expensive, taken longer, and been more disruptive to visitors and residents. And GOA enabled us to package that together and to be so much more efficient in terms of getting those projects done, which in turn enabled us to be able to, we took a moderately hard road to maintain and now have a paved road that is easier for us to maintain. And so we were able to now reallocate resources to doing work elsewhere in the park. So thank you very much.
And to add, when we originally lobbied on the bill, and we started working on deferred maintenance issues 20 years ago with the committee, and these issues were being raised by the Bush administration at that time, we knew Yellowstone was in dire need of money for the Loop Road and Grand Canyon, the water pipeline. We were coming to all of you, begging you for this money to upgrade, all of these national park units. What we did back then, when we were designing the original Great American Outdoors Act, is you'll notice a line in the bill that allows all of the agencies to add other projects to an existing deferred maintenance project, because we said at the time, if you're repairing the roof of a visitor center, that's your moment to also improve other aspects of the building as well. So we actually added that to the bill with the foresight of thinking this will allow the Park Service to not only take care of this asset, but also improve upon it. Well, now we've learned after 5 years that little provision, that little sentence in the bill has been very meaningful for all the agencies and has allowed them to replace buildings, to add features. The Lewis River Bridge is a great example. More parking, improved trailheads, better visitor access. And so what I would do is take a look at the bill again and make sure that modernization piece is more prominently in the bill. But we still have so much deferred maintenance with the Park Service. We still have parks that desperately need more money for projects. So we'd hate to lose the emphasis on deferred maintenance because we still have a lot of assets in poor condition. So let's keep lifting up the parks while modernizing them, because I think it's working out really well right now.
Yes, please.
Representative, thank you. And I think a piece of a larger picture that certainly should be and needs to be considered, right? We look at visitor trends, and visitor growth is growing exponentially. And also, how visitors use the parks and these landscapes evolves and changes over time. So as we invest in, important deferred maintenance projects and modernization, certainly need to be conscious of those elements.
I'm out of time. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Gentleladies, time's expired. I now recognize myself for questions. Superintendent Jenkins, Grand Teton is unique, and we had this conversation earlier. There's some statistic out there that says across the national park, something like 90 or 95% of the people never get more than 100 yards off of the path. But you called Grand Teton a backcountry park because the trails are used so much. My idea when I became chairman of the committee was that we promote conservation through access, when we can get people into the parks, when they can see things and have that better experience. That anticipation the experience shouldn't be a letdown from the anticipation. It should be even better than the anticipation. How do we use GOA to do what you've done here across the other parks?
Wow, that's Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the question. Let me start with saying yes, as I think it is important to understand that visitation, first of all, visitation is not like a thermometer where the number goes up or down. Visitation is more like a balloon. In the last 15 years, visitation at Grand Teton National Park has increased 15%. But over that same 10 years, trail use has gone up 25%. So while we have more people here, we also have more people on trails, or we have people recreating differently, more people floating on the river, more people working with guides to climb the Grand. And so what we're doing here at Grand Teton is we are trying to look out 10, 15, 20 years and anticipate the growth of visitation and where we need to make substantial investments in infrastructure in order to be able to support that visitation. So as you've heard me say already is Coulter Bay is a place where on an average day, we can have 10 to 11,000 people. We actually believe that we can accommodate more people there. Right. But in order to be able to do that, we need to make sure that the toilets flush. We need to make sure that people have places to park, that they have a park ranger to talk to get their questions answered, a place to be able to get lunch.
If I can move on, another thing that you did with GOA was put the new lanes in, the horse trailer station just past the entryway. What a great use of the funds to allow people to get into the park more. I know that in talking to Secretary Burgum, he wants to streamline the visitor experience of getting through the entryways. You've used GOA to do that, but also there may be ways to use better computer systems and reservation systems to make that work. But I think a key component of it is the partnership with the private sector, whether it's through the Park Foundation or through the concessioners. An amazing thing we have here with Teton Village is it's not part of the park, it borders the park, and it allows access to the park and to the private park. And Ms. Calder, you said people don't travel to see something ordinary. I agree. They travel for that experience. You also said visitors don't know who owns what. You had another great quote that I couldn't write down fast enough, but thank you for that. Can you talk about how, from the private sector, you're able to work in harmony with the park and create that seamless transition where visitors come here and have a better experience, and by the access that you provide at Grand Teton?
Yes, it's a great question, and I think that the most important thing to say to that end is that we all work together. We're constantly communicating. We're thinking about the visitor journey from end to end, and we are connected logistically, or we touch each other, but also in the way we treat the visitor experience. We, as the Travel and Tourism Board, we want to make sure when people come here, they get to experience all of it. And whether the guest comes to the parks, which they probably will, or in the national forests, or in the gateway communities or the towns, we're always trying to ensure that when they come, it's easy for them to get around. We educate them on what they can do and try to give them some advice on how to experience our destination to its fullest. They don't know when one thing ends and the other begins, so it's really important that we are always sharing that information so they can experience the whole destination, because that's what will truly be extraordinary.
And Mr. Phillips, you're in the business of enhancing people's experience when they come to the park. This may be self-explanatory, but when the Park Service uses GOA to improve the facilities, how does that help you in your small business, which you said without access, our opportunities vanish? How important is it for you to be able to work with the park and for them to have good facilities so that you can enhance the experience when visitors get here?
Chairman, yeah, thank you for that question. It is so crucial that our guests are comfortable on the programs, they're enjoying themselves. You know, for example, we look at the Moose Wilson corridor, which was funded by GOA, and you know that historically that was a dirt road. And I remember after a long day driving with guests from Yellowstone, 260 miles round trip, and to have that last 10 miles, potholes, washboards, narrow roads, not a lasting impression we want to leave with our guests. So just 100%. The infrastructure improvements benefits the guest experience, and it makes for happy customers. They're going to come back. They're going to visit additional national parks. We know these national parks good for our wellness, mental health wellness, fresh air. So that's it.
Thank you. Now, my time has expired as well, but as being chairman, I get to turn the clock off. But I'm turning it off for one purpose, and that's to allow each of you to tell us something that we may not have asked that you want to tell the committee. And we'll start with Ms. Madsen and just work down the table.
Thank you very much. One thing I wanted to just add in regards to the funding to help with the deferred maintenance, Superintendent Jenkins and Ms. Brengel talked about new buildings, et cetera. When we were involved with the construction of the Craig Thomas Discovery and Visitor Center, it was led by the late Senator Craig Thomas, and hearing about deferred maintenance at that time, we determined that we should raise an extra $2 million that we have in a capital reserve fund for that building, because we were concerned that that beautiful building would fall into disrepair. So I just encourage you, as you think about the reauthorization of this bill, to consider the new things that you're bringing money to and thinking about making sure that they stay at the level at which they are, because then we're going to just continue, right, to compound the deferred maintenance. So we did that on the private sector side, and so with the visitor center, if the Park Service has an element that needs to be updated or whatever, they come to us with a request, and we fund that request, and that's private funding that is helping to support that building.
Thank you. Ms. Brengel?
Yeah, we want to play the long game with all of you. We want to make sure that we don't dig another hole for 30 years, 40 years from now. So one thing that we want to make sure that you all are considering in the bill is something to take care of cyclical maintenance moving forward. And Senator King brings this up all the time on the Senate side when we talk about Great American Outdoors Act. But if we are going to create a fund, can we do something that is even longer lasting to make sure that the Park Service can continue to make the repairs over time? And what we've seen with appropriations is it just hasn't kept up with maintenance over the years. And I feel like we work on this with every administration and every Congress. So if we could think about a pot of money that we could create that would last even further than the number of years that we'll have for this bill, and help pay for cyclical maintenance, I think that would really help the Park Service.
Yeah, those foreign visitors fees might be an opportunity to do that.
Yeah, and I think, Anelia, your wonderful staff person, which I can say out loud on camera right now.
And we would all agree.
Yes, she's amazing. She and I have talked about this, and could we sort of use that money sort of long term to pay for that, just as when we increase the senior pass during the Centennial Bill, that money continues to grow for those projects under the Centennial Bill. So this could create something for cyclical.
Thank you. Mr. Phillips?
Thank you, Chairman. And yeah, a couple points I'd like to make. One is what an incredible opportunity it is for the private sector to be working within our public lands. And I feel, and my team, we feel incredibly fortunate to have that opportunity to, connect visitors, to help the service, interact with these visitors and connect them to the landscape. And, it's been interesting over, my 20 years working with the Park Service here and seeing, different administrations come and go, different superintendents come and go, and staff. But, we have one of the best right here in Grand Teton, as I think y'all know. Some other things to consider, other things that we should consider keeping the visitor economy intact, right? I'm very passionate about that. It's my livelihood. And I think for one, the visitor economy is a pathway to protect these incredible natural resources. And the visitor economy does, chip in to some degree. Hunters and anglers have done an incredible amount of conservation work over the past 100 years. Right now where we are at with, the visitors visiting parks, exploring the wildlife, protected public lands, I really feel that there's an incredible opportunity to the visitor economy to do much more to promote the conservation of what they're coming to enjoy. We also need to consider, properly staffed parks. The Park Service concession office here, they do a phenomenal job talking to them on the phone like they are stressed, they're burnt out, and it's something for consideration. I think, empowering local leaders in park units around the country, local superintendent leaders to have authority, I think is incredible. And then also, and I love what came out of Congress recently, like giving authority and directive to local superintendent leaders to better engage the local county and town governments. I think that is crucial.
Thank you, Mr. Phillips. Ms. Calder?
Yes, thank you. So I would say the Great American Outdoors Act invests in our greatest natural treasure, the parks and the public lands, and this impacts millions of people who visit. It changes people's lives. I would also reiterate, when you invest in parks and public lands, you need to invest in people. The people are what make it all work. Outside of the infrastructure, the parks and the national forests and these public lands need personnel and people on the ground and people in administration to make sure they can execute on all the things that the visitor is expecting and to run these areas smoothly. So I would encourage the committee to consider how people impact the visitor experience and when people come to these public lands as well. And lastly, I would just say, as we sit here under our skyscrapers, the Tetons, I think that the parks and the national forests and the public lands around the country are something everyone gets to experience, and it's an investment in our entire country. So I would feel proud of that.
Superintendent Jenkins?
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much. I have a couple of points. The first I would say is that I have worked all over the country. They're used to this. Right? Yeah. There's magic in this place. There's magic in this place because of these people. The community here is, I think in this magic, there is something that the Park Service, the department, Congress can learn about in terms of the collaboration between the state of Wyoming, Teton County, the town of Jackson, and the business community. The way that we work together to be stewards of this place. Sorry. It's a heartfelt sentiment. I apologize for that. Having said that, I also just really express my appreciation to you, Mr. Chairman, as well as the entire committee for taking the President's budget proposal to consider the reauthorization of Mr. Trump's GOA Legacy Restoration Fund. It would make a tremendous difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent, and no reason to apologize. Thank you again for your passion and for Park Service employees all across the country. Do have a letter here from the Teton County Board of Commissioners, which I know some of them are here today. And in this letter, it says, sound management of these public lands protects a thriving ecosystem with high-quality wildlife and fish habitat, clean water, and abundant opportunities for outdoor recreation. These assets provide the foundation of our local economic prosperity, our community character, and our quality of life. We strongly support reauthorizing the Great American Outdoors Act, and without objection, I submit this to the record. So ordered. Again, I want to thank all the witnesses for their valuable testimony, and thank you to the members who traveled here. Some of them struggled more than others to get here, and we even lost a few that had planned to be here. But thank you for your effort to come out for this important bipartisan hearing. Members of the committee may have some additional questions for our witnesses, and we'd ask that the witnesses respond to these questions in writing. Under Committee Rule 3, members of the committee must submit questions to the committee clerk by 5 p.m. on Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. The hearing record will be held open for 10 business days for these responses. I'd like to direct any interested members of the public to fill out one of our comment sheets, which are available on the table by the exit. You can also pick up a postcard which has more information about how to follow the committee's efforts to reauthorize and improve the Great American Outdoors Act. Finally, I encourage everyone to visit the Committee on Natural Resources website, naturalresources.house.gov, where we will post a video recording of this hearing. You can also find information about the committee's work expanding and improving recreational access to our nation's wonderful parks and public lands. If there's no further business, without objection, the committee stands adjourned.